Tim, this is a really, really good point here. Really, really good question. This is something we saw a lot of. During the pandemic, my son's mom decided to keep our son at one house against my input. Courts and the police did not want to address the parenting agreement. We saw this all over the country, really for the past 2+ years now. We saw in 2020, there was a period of time where just about every single state had the court system shut down unless you had a domestic violence filing or unless you had an emergency filing. There were certain courthouses out here in California that were closed for 4 or 5 months, where you essentially had to have an emergency situation or what the court deemed an emergency to create this. One of the positive effects, I think, coming out of the pandemic, and I think dads suffered from what you're speaking of more than moms did, is that I think it's become much more clear to the judges which parents gatekeeping, which parents dictating. It's made it much less he said, she said. There's obviously some suffering involved, having the children withheld, one parent dictating rules, but I've seen a lot more situations where coming out of the pandemic, custody has flipped because the judge sees that, hey, mom is the one who's the issue here. And exhibit 1A here is during the pandemic, she said, yeah, the kids can't go to dad's house, or dad's got to wear a mask around them. There are any number of things that we've seen. I think we've seen an increase in custody being flipped in those situations. And number two on that is that I think that there have been a lot of kids, especially I would say the 12 to 15 year olds. I've seen an increase in number of cases in the last 6 months where teenagers have said, I don't want to live with the parent that made all those rules, withheld me from the other parent during the COVID issues. So, and then third, on the very positive front, we've seen a lot with the homeschool, where a lot of parents did go to 50-50. They did week on, week off, so they could both shoulder the load. And I think in the long run, that's going to be a huge step forward for dads. On the last piece, the courts and police not wanting to address the parenting agreement, that's an ongoing issue. I mean, so many states, we have criminal code out here. I know Missouri, Texas, Oklahoma, Tennessee. Most states have a criminal code, Illinois, for parental interference. And I think part of it out here is we have a lot of law enforcement clients, and it's educating them on that. And also educating our dads on, if there are issues, here's how you deal with them. Here's how you address them with law enforcement. Here's how you document them, because unfortunately we know that the first or second time we report these things, a lot of times they don't get taken seriously. For example, out here in California, I've only seen it prosecuted a few times. When it was prosecuted, it was something that it was so black and white, mom had to plead out to it. But the one I'm most familiar with, dad documented for months. We're talking there were 16, 18, 20 weeks worth of police reports where mom refused to do the custody exchange, and then finally the DA picked it up. Is that something that needs to change? Yes. It's very black and white. A law is being violated. And a lot of times what happens is that parent that's withholding tries to leverage kind of some creases in the law, domestic violence, kids don't want to go. But a lot of times when in at least here in California, when you want to get the penal code enforced, when you want to get the DA to take your case up, you need to be diligent in reporting it every single time and documenting what's going on.